Hey guys, girls and ADHD. It's such an important topic. And for the month of March, I've been focusing on girls and ADHD just due to the fact that it's Women's History Month and I feel like it needs extra attention. Girls are just as likely as boys to have ADHD. ADHD does not discriminate between races, sexes, genders, nationality, or anything. Okay, it's suggested that about 5 to 8% of the world population has ADHD. So that equates to roughly 560 million people, almost twice the population of the United States. So the chances that you know somebody with ADHD is pretty strong, but you might not know that they have it. You might not be aware that they're struggling with it. You might notice that they have just some annoying quirks or habits or intensity about them that you just don't get. Okay. This actually is very true in girls. And I'm actually a girl with ADHD, but I'm of a generation where it went quite undiagnosed. Okay. People are only now really realizing the regular occurrence of ADHD, right? And so we are seeing an increase in diagnosis, but because the information that we have about it is so much more sophisticated than it was when I was a kid, it is getting diagnosed more regularly for boys. When it comes to girls, it's still a different story. Girls' symptoms are so different from boys' symptoms. It is suggested that about 75 to 90% of girls who have ADHD actually are undiagnosed. I don't know that my ADHD symptoms were overly abundant when I was a kid. I did have, I did well in school. I did have friends. I was always the kid that would talk too much. I would always get spoken to for talking too much in school. That was always the theme of my parent-teacher conferences was, she's a bright girl, she just talks too much. She's a social butterfly. I definitely struggled with performing well on tasks. So I was a bright girl, but my testing was never really reflective of what my ability was. Studying was difficult. Focusing on studying was difficult. Remembering facts and figures and details was difficult. Completing tasks on time was difficult. I was always the one who, and I still am, would leave a project to the very last minute. And I can remember doing this like for years and years and years. I still do it. I would leave it to very last minute because I needed that rush of adrenaline, that stress hormone, to complete the task. And then I would regret it because I would really underestimate the amount of time that task would take. To this day, I do that. So I say that in past tense, but I still do it. So one of the symptoms of ADHD is poor time management and an unawareness of time. So for example, this morning I wanted to blow dry my hair and I just underestimated how long it would take me. And so at 8:40, I have 10 minutes to get my daughter to school and I'm scrambling to get out the door. Really, I needed to wake up a half an hour earlier to be able to accomplish all of that. Okay, so those were some things that I struggled with throughout my life. I can remember pulling all-nighters in college. I can remember feeling so angry at myself and why can't I just do these things ahead of time? Because I had no concept of time. I can remember, which psychology class was it? I don't remember which class it was, but it was one that I was very interested in, and it was a very fascinating, clearly I was interested in it, and I can't remember which class it was, but I was super interested in it, and I I worked hard in that class, and every time we took a test, I got a C. I was like, what is wrong with me? Why am I not getting this? But have a conversation with me about it, and it's a completely different story. And then you bring that into like my future relationships, right? And so there's a lot of symptomology that ADHDers have that impact their relationships, right? Difficulty having close relationships, a lot of impulsivity, entering into relationships when you're not ready to enter into a relationship, high divorce rates. So I am divorced. I was divorced when my oldest was 5. And then, a lot of impulsive behavior after that, just trying to like fill this anxiety that I was having, which at that time really was related to self-esteem and self-worth issues, which I never realized until recently had to do with ADHD. And that's a common thing for girls. Okay, so the long-term effects of a girl with ADHD has to do a lot with self-worth, self-esteem, feeling like they can't do anything right, feeling hopeless. A lot of girls who have ADHD end up struggling with depression and anxiety. Many enter into self-harm behaviors like cutting, eating disorders, suicidal ideation, those kinds of things. Very scary outcomes it can have. And I have struggled with the depression and the anxiety. And what I've realized is, yes, the depression and the anxiety struggles were probably real, but they were a result of my feeling like I was a failure. And my feeling like I was a failure was that I had ADHD. I didn't realize I had ADHD, and I was not interacting with the world in a way that was conducive to how my brain needed to interact with the world. And the pressure that I was putting on myself to perform like a neurotypical person was too much, because I wasn't going to be able to do it anyway. So I have some friends who are just like, I'm like so jealous of some of their abilities, like super organized, super planful, always know what's going on next. And I just don't. Like, I can't keep track of anything. Ask my husband, he'll tell you. I forget things. I forget important things. I forget unimportant things. I put things away in a place where I won't forget, because we're going to need it again later, never to be seen again, because I have no idea where I put it. Organizing bills, organizing finances, I have no idea. It's really, really hard for me. I like to think I have those skills, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, it's a massive, massive struggle. And that's all related to ADHD and inattention. It's all related to the way my executive functioning works. So I have to put systems in place to keep track of all that. I have to write everything down. I have to put reminders in my phone all day long. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I got a new piece of equipment for work. And I was talking to her this morning, and I said, hey, did I tell you I got such and such? And she goes, yeah, 4 times. I don't remember the 3 times I told her before that. And so we got laughing, because we know that it's an ADHD symptom. But now that I'm aware, it's less devastating to my soul and my spirit, because now I can see the things that I'm doing wrong as a symptom of my difficulty, rather than, I think my battery just died on my headphones, rather than just a failure as a human, right? So there is a legitimate brain composition reason why that's happening. So I think, for me, the outcomes were okay. I mean, I could go deeper into some of the negative outcomes that I've had. Divorce is hard. Divorce is not easy. Divorce with children in particular is not easy. The consequences are far reaching. right? Relationships with family members, difficulty repairing relationships when you have a conflict, all those things, because they're so attached to your self-worth, your self-esteem, and your value, and you feel like a failure in so many areas of your life. When you're not, you just interact differently with the world. So just keep this in mind, okay? And think about the girls in your world that might be struggling in some of those areas. Is she a daydreamer? Is she very forgetful? Does she have a difficult time doing well on a test that you know darn well she understands and gets? Does she get down on herself? Does she feel depressed and anxious? And it just doesn't make sense as to why. Does she forget? Does she never finish a task? I don't know how many. I'm an obsessive crocheter. For any of you that know me personally, y'all know that I love to crochet. That's my fidget, right? That helps my ADHD, which I didn't necessarily, I would always say that I have ADHD, but never actually realized I did have it. And I do have it. But that's my fidget. It keeps my hands busy so my mind can focus on what's going on around me. It's a proven effective tool. So, but I have so many crochet projects and so many good intentions with these projects. Like, so-and-so is having a baby. I'm going to make them A, B, and C. And I can tell you, everything is started. Everything is started. Not a damn one of them is finished. And I don't know if they ever will. I made my mom a blanket for Mother's Day like 2 years ago. I made a block for each one of the family's birthstone color. It's still sitting in my cabinet. The blocks are done, but do you think I've stitched it together? And she asks me for it all the time, but I still haven't done it. And that's my ADHD. I never think of it. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's not that it's not a priority. It's that it doesn't make it to where it needs to make it in my brain. And I am like moving on to the next task, moving on to the next task. So for me to finish a project, I have to be super, super duper intentional. So just keep some of those things in mind, okay? And I have a webinar coming up on March 30th, and it's going to be all about ADHD in girls. And you can click the link in this post, in this blog, or wherever you're reading this, you can, or hearing this, you can definitely click the link, because I want to be able to answer your questions, okay? I want to give you some information, I want to educate you, and then I want to be able to answer your questions. You might be considering it, you might be wondering if this is what's going on for your daughter, and it can't hurt to get the information, and I can provide it to you. So consider joining the webinar. It's on March 30th live at 7:30 p.m. If you click the link, you'll be able to register, and you'll have the Zoom information and all of that stuff. So I'd love to have you there. ADHD is not a disability. In fact, it can be used as a superpower, right? But the biggest thing that you can do is to learn how to harness it, right? So I don't know, it's like 300%. People with ADHD are 300% more likely to start their own business than a non-ADHDer. So we've got the power, we've got the creativity, we've got the ambition and the drive, especially when we're passionate about something. So don't hold it back, okay? Come learn all about it. See how you can harness it, and maybe you're going to help somebody that you love. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.